Next news. Breaking news.
10 million people sat in the dark while Donald Trump cracked a grin and said, "Cuba is next, by the way." But pretend I didn't say that, please. That line hit Havana like a siren because the communist racket knows exactly what the blackout means. It wasn't weather, it wasn't bad luck. Cuba's entire electric grid collapsed again. The island is broke, blacked out, and cornered. Miguel Diaz-Canel started ranting about dying for the revolution down to the last drop of blood. Beijing sprinted in to shield the regime. And Trump? Well, he kept talking like a man who already sees the endgame. And wait until you hear who suddenly wants to negotiate. See, this matters because Cuba is not some abstract Cold War museum piece. It sits 90 miles from Florida, pumps anti-American poison into this hemisphere, and for decades, the Castro machine trained radicals, sold repression as romance, and survived on subsidies, lies, and fear. Now the mask just slipped. An island-wide blackout hammered roughly 10 million people. Hospitals got hit, critical services got hit, and the regime still tried the oldest communist scam on earth. Blame America before blaming communism. Bloomberg pushed the line out about de facto U.S. oil blockade. China Daily Mao Ning barked that America must stop pressure on Cuba. Good, let them bark. The blackouts came from crumbling infrastructure, empty coffers, and a dictatorship that cannibalized its own future. And here's the hemispheric stake. When Trump projects strength, hostile regimes stop bluffing and start folding. We saw it in our Iran coverage. We called this on June 23rd in our Cuba segment, and now Marco Rubio is torching Cuban influence operations right here at home while Havana panics abroad. No bailout, no rescue mission for communists. It's time to finish the break. And when a regime leaves 10 million people in the dark, you remember how every bureaucracy survives confusion. That hits here at home with Medicare too. Big insurance feeds a Medicare confusion industrial complex so seniors stay stuck. Chapter blows that up. They're simple by design. One call, one advisor, and they work for you, not big insurance. They look at your doctors, look at your prescriptions, your whole situation, then tell you the truth with no propaganda, just facts. If you're already on the right plan, they'll say it. If not, they'll help you switch. It's free, takes about 20 minutes. Just give them a call. The number's on the screen there, 910-728-4109. Last year, people who found new plans with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. Clarity beats bureaucratic fog every time. Cut the fog. Communists thrive on confusion. Patriots don't. Now back to the line that sent the foreign policy priesthood into cardiac arrest. Trump didn't just say Cuba's weak. He salted the wound. He said Cuba is next, by the way, but pretend I didn't say that, please. That mock little please, it mattered. It told you he knew the media would explode, and he said it anyway, but the line I want you to keep in your head before I roll the tweets is even sharper. Trump said taking Cuba could be a friendly takeover. Friendly for whom? Not for the Castro machine. Cuba's president says Cuba isn't afraid of a U.S. attack and is getting ready.
But do you believe they are going to use force and an attack is imminent?
If there is an attack, the Cuban people will respond in unity, firmness, and in defense of our sovereignty. We don't want a war, but we're not afraid of it, and we are getting ready so that we're not surprised or defeated.
And we can talk about how you're getting ready in a moment, but we have seen a military buildup off your coast. When Donald Trump has threatened Venezuela, for example, he has acted. When he has threatened Iran, he has acted. I know you're saying that me asking whether an attack being imminent is hypothetical, but we've seen in the past when he has said something, he has done it. Are you taking what he is saying seriously when he says we can take Cuba?
We need to move away from confrontation for the sake of both our peoples. I think that the American people, for which we are respectful, and the Cuban people can have a wonderful relationship as very good neighbors because we're very close to each other. I, like many other million Cubans, are willing to give our lives for the revolution, and we are willing to fight to the very last drop of blood in order to defend our rights, and our independence, our sovereignty, and our achievements.
So, Cuba's regime is talking tough, promising to fight the revolution to the last drop. Next, Beijing jumps in, with China's foreign ministry demanding the U.S. back off Cuba immediately. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning made the remarks at a regular press briefing following reports that Cuba has requested the United Nations General Assembly to convene a special session on the U.S. blockade against Cuba.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel recently warned that the U.S. embargo against Cuba has reached a threshold level amounted to genocide, and requested a special session at the UN General Assembly on July 7th. What is China's comment? The U.S. 60-plus years of full blockage and illicit sanctions have brought profound sufferings to the Cuban people. Recently, the U.S. once again upgraded relevant blockage and sanction measures, hitting hard at the basic livelihood of the Cuban people and raising grave concern from the international community. China, as always, opposed illicit unilateral sanctions that have no basis in international law, and we urge the U.S. to stop its blockage, coercion, and pressuring against Cuba at once, and stop violating the Cuban people's rights to survival and development. China firmly supports Cuba in defending national sovereignty and standing against external interference. We stand ready to work with the rest of the world to uphold international fairness and justice.
So now you've got Havana rattling sabers, China running diplomatic cover. While the communist posture of the island's crumbling fast, Bloomberg reports Cuba's entire electric grid has just collapsed. Cuba's electric grid suffered a total collapse Monday as the nation struggles with crumbling infrastructure and a de facto U.S. oil blockade that has pushed the communist-run island to the brink. So the collapse isn't some abstract policy fight. It's a full-blown system failure. Fox lays out just how massive the blackout is. 10 million people hit, hospitals caught in the middle.
This just in, breaking moments ago, Cuba has suffered an island-wide blackout. This is happening as its fuel reserves dwindle and its electric grid continues to crumble. They say the cause is under investigation. This is the second blackout this year. The country relies on getting 60% of its oil from outside of the country. Cuba only produces, I believe, about 40% of the fuel that it needs. You're talking about 10 million people affected by this. It's obviously affecting the hospitals there and the lives of so many. So we're going to continue monitoring that developing story.
With the grid down and fuel running dry, Cuba looks weaker by the hour. That's when Trump steps in and says he believes he'll have the honor of taking Cuba.
And great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change, you know. They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba's seen the end. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders.
So Trump didn't stop at calling Cuba weak, and next up he goes even further, saying the regime is talking with the U.S. and a friendly takeover could be on the table.
The Cuban government is talking with us, and they're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
So first, it was a possible takeover. Then Trump sharpened it, saying Cuba is the next one, but not before adding a little jab at the media.
Anymore, I don't see it. He's doing some job, and your next one is going to be, we want to do that special Cuba. He's waiting, but he says, let's get this one finished first. We could do them all at the same time, but bad things happen. If you watch countries over the years, you do them all too fast, bad things happen. We're not going to let anything bad happen to this country.
So Trump's warning kept building from there. Next, aboard Air Force One, he says flat out, Cuba is ready to fall.
One of the things that is happening, and I think you see it all the time, Howard, you've seen it, that Cuba is ready to fall. You know? Yes. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Marco Rubio.
So after saying Cuba's ready to fall, Trump goes one step further. He says Cuba is next.
Because I campaigned on the fact peace through strength, you wouldn't have to use it. I said you'll never have to use it, but sometimes use it. And Cuba's next, by the way, but pretend I didn't say that, please. Pretend I didn't say that. Please, 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 media, please disregard that statement. Thank you very much. Cuba's next.
Because the usual media class loves to play dumb when Trump says exactly what he means, the next item, straight fact check confirming the date and quote and the context. Yes, Trump says Cuba is next. By the way, pretend I didn't say that. Because the usual media class loves to play dumb when Trump says what he means. Yes, President Trump said exactly that on March 27, 2026 at the Future Investment Initiative Forum in Miami. While discussing U.S. military actions in Venezuela and Iran, he stated Cuba is next, by the way, but pretend I didn't say that. Multiple outlets, including Reuters, Fox, and The Hill, reported it with video clips. The meme's why list is a common online theory linking interventions to central banking, but Trump's remark was in the context of ongoing foreign policy shifts. So yes, the quote was real and documented. Now we turn to the regime itself, where a Cuban ambassador is denying that Raul Castro's grandson has any real power. Cuba's ambassador denies that El Canegro has the power in the regime. Cuba's ambassador to Uruguay, Lizette Perez, denied that Raul Guillermo Rodriguez Castro, the grandson of Raul Castro, plays a political role within the Cuban regime. So the denial gets shaky. Next, the report says the grandson is open to negotiating directly with President Trump. The grandson of the communist dictator Raul Castro expressed his willingness to negotiate with President Trump and any representative, according to the USA Today. So while regime insiders talk negotiation, the crackdown at home is already moving. Rubio terminating the legal status of a Cuban foreign influence operative and federal agents moving in. Rubio terminating the legal status of Cuban communist foreign influence operatives whose network brought Hassan Piker to Cuba. Federal agents took Carlos Antonio Loga Dominguez and his family into custody pending removal. He spent over a decade working for ICAP, the Cuban regime's premier intelligence and influence front group in the U.S. ICAP's own president is a convicted Cuban spy who did 15 years in a U.S. prison. For years, they operated in the open, cultivating America's far left to export Castro's revolution here. That era is officially over. So the Miguel Diaz-Canel gave away the whole game when he started talking about fighting to the very last drop of blood. Strong governments do not talk like that. Cornered regimes do. Collapsing regimes do. Fraud regimes do. And the Castro machine is all three. So look at the sequence. Cuba's grid craters. Trump says Cuba is ready to fall. Trump says he would have the honor of taking Cuba. Trump said it could be a friendly takeover. Then he drops the blade that Cuba is next. Beijing lunges to protect Havana. Raul Castro's grandson suddenly open to negotiation. Marco Rubio rips a Cuban foreign influence operative out of legal status here in the U.S. That's not random noise. That is a communist racket getting squeezed from every side by American strength. So, take the lesson and burn it in. Communism did not fail in theory. It failed on camera. It failed in an island-wide blackout. It failed in a dictator's desperate promise to spill blood for a revolution that cannot keep the lights on. And Donald Trump did not create that collapse. He exposed it, accelerated the pressure, made the whole hemisphere watch Havana wobble. That's why the legacy media hate this story. They can't stand a foreign policy doctrine that works. They can't stand Trump calling the shots, then watching the regime buckle on schedule. They would rather run cover for Bloomberg's blockade spin, China's propaganda, and every regime apologist who wants one more lifeline for Castro's heirs. No lifeline, no bailout, no face-saving deal for the men who wrecked Cuba and exported that poison north. If you know Cuban Americans, send them this. If you want America back in charge of its hemisphere, share this and keep your eyes on Marco Rubio and President Trump. When the lights go out on communism, you don't change the bulb, you lock the door. And we are unlocking the door to the missed notifications that I've read you guys aren't receiving in the comments section. That's right. We set up this special number just for you, and thousands of patriots are already taking advantage of it. I want to make sure you do too. Text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963 and make sure you get the notifications from me when YouTube fails you. And celebrate the wins with the Next News Network by going to the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.